This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
It's the Dirty Laundry Game-Worn Hockey Podcast.
We're old school, right? We wash our own dirty laundry.
The name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
I refuse to be judged by a grown man wearing a hockey jersey.
Game on!
Game on!
We are back with another episode of the Dirty Laundry Game-Worn Hockey Podcast, episode number 83. DocNoyes, Wade Hampton tonight. Paul Rank doing some traveling. Justin had some things come up that he had to take care of. So just the two of us, but Wade and I can ramble plenty for everybody.
Just the two of us.
Right. That went through my head right after I said it. Can't thank Mitch enough for his sponsorship, the Drink Your Face Off line of barware and clothing. Reach out to him for anything you need. He can definitely get you set up. I know he's been working on some other cool puck designs. If you've not seen him, a lot of fun stuff there. My drink of choice tonight, I don't know if you can actually still find it. I'm going through and emptying some bottles that were close to the bottom. So this is a 2021 limited edition. It's called the FAE1 of Maker's Mark. Came out, it's very good stuff. It was hard to find, a little bit more expensive, but it is my drink of choice tonight in the old fashioned. So cheers to everybody.
Cheers.
Wade with his Dr. Pepper as always.
Yeah. I actually had somebody brought me a McDonald's one. So
and that could be a whole side discussion is how good soda from McDonald's taste when you get it out of the fountain, because the way they cool the lines and everything. There's a whole history of Coke and the other sodas there. If you go look,
it's stainless steel lines.
Yep,
is the secret. I know all about it. We could have an entire show about dirty laundry of McDonald's sodas.
And I love McDonald's in any form. So we may have to start Patreon and just do side shows on stuff like this.
Absolutely.
Couple things that we'll touch on here in a minute is one is Pegspo. I was hoping Justin would be able to be on tonight, kind of give his wrap up on that. But it looks like Pete and them had an amazing show. The pictures looked awesome. It looks like everybody enjoyed the draw with the Winnipeg Jets. A lot of really cool jerseys. I know Paul got one. Justin, I think, got at least one. And I hope everybody got what they wanted or made some trade deals afterwards to get that. But looked like a great show. You have an update for the Frozen 4 Expo.
Yeah, got the final word from the Blues. They're going to do a rinkside drop at the show, which they've done at the regular show the last couple of years, which has been great. And so those guys will be in attendance with a surprise at the show exclusive drop. So that's pretty cool. I know one thing, it sounds like they're probably not going to take, I know last time we had some issues with people from, calling people and people trying to give credit cards. So I don't think that's going to happen this time. So really the only way you're going to be able to get it is if somebody is there and either pays for it directly or is there directly. So should be some cool stuff. Show's shaping up to be pretty cool. There is a baseball card or sports card shop in the building that we're doing the show in called Rippin' Rookies. And they're going to have their normal Saturday open, but they're going to have their door to the hallway to where we are open. So that's going to be pretty cool. And then there's a bar area with like a giant TV screen that's going to be open during the event as well for people to get drinks and food and stuff. So, the venue is a little different than our typical like ballroom hotel thing. It's going to be a little bit more intimate, a little bit more fun, and, no admission this year. And it's just going to be kind of wide open and a little bit of fun. I am still working on possibly just like one autograph guest, and we're going to get that figured out. I need to get that figured out this week. I've got the feelers out. I just need to make some confirmations, and I'll be posting that online. But should be a fun little one. And then I think a lot of us are hoping to catch some college hockey games and check that out because the atmosphere for those should be amazing.
Oh, yeah. I think Enterprise, especially as it shakes out who's coming, Enterprise is very full. But again, thanks to the St. Louis Blues and to Ringside Reserve for wanting to come to this event. They've done the last 2 October shows for Wade,
Yeah.
and then doing this one in April. It's awesome to be able to team up with them, show them what the hobby's like, and get some people that may not be exposed to what Rinkside has coming to these shows from out of town.
It's a great partnership in the sense that, you know, I know that it sounds like LA has the Kings do it, and obviously the Winnipeg show has, you know, their connections, and then Migrate, you know, supporting the shows out east. And it's a really, really nice addition to the show. It really means a lot to me personally that those guys support it, but it's great for the hobby because it goes 2 ways. I think it has allowed them to get contact with a lot of people and make some changes and understand where we're coming from on stuff. And it's allowed us to have that access that's really cool. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
Yes. And if you're doing an expo in your area, and like what they did in SoCal with the Kings, and you've got the Sharks out there, if you're in a city with an NHL team, try and team up with them like that, and use these other expos as examples to draw them in, because they may be gun shy, but start showing them pictures from these other ones, and I think you'll change your mind pretty quick.
Yeah, and I always tell everybody I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, and I'm pretty open to helping. And you know, if somebody ever wants to pick my brain to start one somewhere else, or even wants me to piggyback onto one, my goal has always been to do more than just St. Louis, and to expand the brand of what I do to other cities. But obviously, I need to have some anchors in those cities as well. So I'm always a call away, and I'm always willing to take a message. So one other thing I do want to throw out is we will be doing some dirty laundry at the show as well. So that's another great thing that you provide us, Doc, and I'm really excited about that. You know, it really allows us to broaden the show a little bit. It allows you to, you know, use your format to do something cool. And it's neat just to get some other in-house guests.
Oh yeah, we'll pull everybody in the room in. What we may actually, as I was thinking about this too, with it coming up, is my wife will be there, Monica will be there. Bring both of them on and get their opinions of what they think about Paul and I and others, how we collect and what they. And I know Monica is very deep in it. My wife understands it, but doesn't collect really anything of her own. But just kind of get their opinions on it from a different perspective.
I mean, Scarlett Johansson will be out of town. She was going to come and support me in it, but she's not available. So I'll have to have Scarlett come on the show another time. So sorry.
Sorry. I mean, you could. She's a Hollywood person. You could always find a backup. You never know.
Yeah. I mean, I've got other options, but you know, it just is what it is.
Yes, but please, if you're looking to come out, I mean, we've talked to a few other people that are looking. The flights are cheap.
Yeah,
St. Louis, and I mean, it could even be a quick in and out if you wanted. Auctions around the hobby, actually not a lot.
no,
NHL auctions has one game used, game worn thing currently.
yeah,
a 23-24 Ovechkin autographed visor.
yeah.
Ends in a few days, and it's currently $293.
I think AHL auctions has some skills jerseys that have they're up. Besides that, yeah, it's pretty quiet. It looked, to review, game worn auctions.net closed. And I hate to say anything bad, but as always, nothing as usual, nothing spectacular happening there. It's just really kind of a shame that what they're putting out there has really kind of fallen off a little bit.
And maybe it's just evidence flowing a little bit. But yeah, it's something to keep an eye on across all the auction houses. Migrate does have a couple things up. They have the Columbus Blue Jackets Stadium Series photo shoot jersey and helmet auction. It ends on March 25th. Those jerseys are sharp. Yeah. I know. And actually, speaking of that, is the NHL ones just closed yesterday or the day before. I didn't think to pull the prices up, but I think some of those went pretty pricey.
Pretty bonkers, yeah. I do know that Fanatics did just send out a list of some issued and worn kind of, I don't want to say leftovers, but I guess some of the stuff they still have from Four Nations. I saw a list today of that stuff. Looked like issue jerseys were somewhere in the around 2,000 mark, and there were a couple of good deals in the 3,500, 4,000 mark, but not a lot of the USA Canada ones left. It seemed like there was a lot more of the other two teams kind of left, which I guess you'd kind of expect.
Yeah, definitely not surprising. And then also on my grid, they do have a practice jersey and gloves auction that ends in 18 days.
Yeah.
And even just the practice jerseys with the Stadium Series patch on the shoulder and the big cannon on the front, they are very sharp. But they end on April the 1st. So those really are the. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're kind of in a weird time just because a lot of set ones have kind of just came through. Everybody's in set twos, and then you're waiting to see what happens with, who goes into what for what, and interesting. This is always kind of a weird time. I know the Blues did announce that they're doing that Shen 1000th game jersey. I think that's this Saturday, so that should be kind of cool. First time they've done one of those, so I'm interested to see what that looks like, and to see what the prices look like on that, because that is something different for collectors that we haven't seen before in St. Louis.
For sure. They don't seem to do a lot of those when they've past ones they've done them for like retirement nights and things like that. But that's the first time I've seen them do for a 1000th game for anybody. Yeah. So that is really cool. I'm trying to remember what teams, because I've seen a couple people post in the collectors.
Yeah. Florida's done it a couple times. I think Florida has done it.
Yes.
And I got it. I'm blanking myself on a couple. There's been a few other teams that have done it, and it always looks kind of neat. I think Florida's done it a couple times. I think they did it for Keith Yandel, and they did it for somebody else for another milestone. I want maybe a Bobrowski milestone or something. I've seen a few of them out there, and they're always neat because it's really unique.
Yeah, definitely it is. The other thing I have seen across a couple of different collector pages is you mentioned teams, other teams set ones or have come out of their set ones now. A lot went up to Four Nations and then switched once the season kicked back in. But a lot of teams had a ton of wear. A lot of games on their jerseys. Actually, the one I saw was a Kachuk from Florida. And I think it had, I swear the person posted, I think either 22 or 24 games in it.
Wow.
It lines up about right with St. Louis because a thing on there and some of the big guns were at 24 games for the aways.
Well, I mean, I think that starts to lean towards the fact that, with Reebok, it seemed like they had an unlimited supply of jerseys in the equipment rooms, right? It seems like with Adidas at the end, it seemed like they had an unlimited number of jerseys and teams were just running through them, right? And whether or not, I know the Blues switched their lettering company, but it seems like maybe Fanatics has slowed down the amount of jerseys that these guys are getting, and maybe they're the readily available amount to put another set together, or just trying to be cautious with playoffs is interesting to me. And I think it's a good thing because, we've been complaining over the number of years of how many sets, when you started seeing teams in set 4, right? The Blues were kind of famous for some set 4s at the end of the Reebok era when they, especially remember when they were with Fanatics as our distributor. I mean, set 4 jerseys, that became pretty common for a couple of years. And it seems like everybody has been turned on by the amount of wear we're seeing on these Fanatics jerseys. So I guess as much as Paul hates it, good for Fanatics, right? For changing.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, especially on the aways because you don't have all the third jerseys or the other stuff you're in there. Whereas, I mean, the Blues have got the home, the heritage, the 90s, and the Winter Classic style. They've all worn at home this year.
Yeah.
So that cuts down the number of and I was kind of going through it, and I think if I remember right from the numbers that I looked at, it was about 9 or 10 games as all the home ones were worn because of all the other.
And they still had, we picked up some and they still had good wear, so not 22.
Definitely can't complain.
And here, I mean, again, it's easy to say this stuff without Paul on. So, hey, Paul, Yeah. But I have yet to have anybody who has gotten their hands on the Fanatics ones who haven't been somewhat impressed with not only the quality of the jersey, but then the amount of wear that they show. That's a weird balancing act because it's like they're great quality, but they're still showing wear. So that's like a balance, but it's a good balance, I think, so far.
It honestly, as I pick these up and kind of hold them, and I need to actually, now that it's crossed my mind, I need to go grab one at some point. Is it reminds me of the weight and kind of the wear. The material feels a little bit different, but the overall weight feels a lot like the CCM Coho ones pre 0405, I think is when.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. It probably, not the Ultra Fit ones, but the ones after that. Like, I think that definitely has that feel and that heavy, that just like a little bit heavier material feel is definitely there. I keep saying it, like I've really become a fan of them, and I as much as I loved the dimples and I loved the dimple era, I actually really like a lot of them without the dimples. It's because it's just a transition back to something a little bit more traditional.
And going back to when we covered this when it first broke and teams were starting to get their samples in and things, and we were getting info fed to us that some teams felt they were plain and things like that. I get that. And to a point, yes, they are, but I will trade plainness for good showing of wear.
Yeah. I mean, and here we have the other thing. We're season 1 into it. And I'm still convinced that by season, 3, when Fanatics gets a chance to maybe do some rebranding and some rebuilding, that we're going to see a little bit of their own, going away from what was safe this first year and probably the second year, and then that third year when they redesign some stuff or change some stuff up. I'd like to see them put some of their touches on it, like the Adidas dimples or whatever. But I'm not going to complain about what these things look like because they've been great.
No, not at all. And as other people get theirs, and a lot of them I think are starting to come in now, let us know what you think. Is comment on the video, send us messages. We'll gladly share it on the show if you're okay with that.
Because I did have one other thing to throw in about the jerseys because we haven't talked about tagging much lately. I did get my hands on through a friend 2 goalie cut jerseys from the Four Nations, and the coding on those stays true with the NHL jerseys. The 0356 is the goalie cut of the 0355 for the player cut on the home and roads, and it was consistent on both a Canada and a USA jersey. So it sounds like that is to stay pretty consistent. So I thought that was interesting that even for the Four Nations, it stayed true to the NHL tagging.
Yes. That'll be interesting to see if anything switches for next season with that, if the code somehow change or if those codes are always the same across the board. Yeah. We'll just see.
And also getting my hands on those, I gotta really, again, the touches on those things were really fantastic. I don't know if I know they released some specialty pictures, but some of that inlay that they put on the Canada ones and some of the inlay like on the USA ones. The one thing I thought was really neat on the USA was if you look at the jersey on the letters and the crest, the USA part, there's like a gray part, and it was almost like that plasticky, like kind of insert stuff that you see on like kind of not sticky, but like that rubbery plastic kind of stuff that you see on like football jerseys and everything. It was really cool, actually. Really went really well to it. And then on the Canada one, that inlay on the sleeves was just gorgeous. So really, really top-notch stuff. I really liked them. So
yeah, and I think there might be more pressure to do the Four Nations game or some version of that in the future because
we got the Olympics coming.
Yep. But so in those off years.
Yeah. Well, the good part about the Olympics, I'm not sure how that's going to work. In the past, not all teams wore the same branded stuff, if you remember correctly.
Right.
So I think that'll be interesting too to see what different teams wear, who's, whatever material. And it's a couple years away, so let's see who else has either jumped in the game or changed the game. Because again, we're seeing, Under Armour making a play in hockey. So I've recently gotten my hands on some of my college alma mater's game worn stuff from Under Armour, and the stuff's really, 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 really nice too. And so I'm interested to see what their intake into hockey looks like.
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait to get my hands on one of those and just to feel the material and stuff. So I
Yeah.
can't wait to check those out from you next month at the Frozen 4 Expo.
Yeah, we will be there.
So we touched on a topic at last show because it was the night before trade deadline, and some really good trades went down. I as I plugged during our show on Thursday night, as I watched the at my office, threw it up on a 55-inch TV, the Daily Face Off 5-hour long live show on it, and it was really good coverage. And when they announced that Marchant was going to Florida, everybody's eyes on the video got huge because nobody saw that coming. And it's always cool to see trades and stuff like that, especially when people are covering it live that get caught off guard, because some of the ones were expected. But and it brings the question back up. And again, after you hear this, feel free to reach out and give us your opinion on it, because it'll help make future shows better, and we can do a follow-up. But by taking Marchant, who's a great player for Boston, as much as I'll pick on him for losing against the Blues and those famous pictures of him crying, I respect him as a player because they call him the Rat, and he's good at his job.
Yeah.
I'm not going to knock him because he is one hell of a player, and I think he's really going to do well in Florida. But does that change? If you're a Boston fan, I didn't even think to reach out to Tom or one of the other guys up in Boston. Does that change your thoughts? And in some cases, looking around the hobby, looking around the different Facebook groups post trade deadline, is seeing stuff posted to move.
Yeah.
A lot of different players. And some, I think people were just, okay, he's not on my team, I want to stick to that, and that's fine. Or other people may have been sad that they whatever that player was left, so they wanted to move it. But do you think it really affects things that much?
Yeah, I mean, I think a guy like Marchant is kind of the exception, not the rule, because he's a guy who is a heart and soul Boston guy. So I think right now, they obviously know their team is in a retool, rebuild. He's gone, but that's an iconic guy. That's a guy who you're going to see his jerseys in the seats for 25 years. You're going to see people wearing his jerseys just like you see Bobby Orr jerseys or Ray Bourque jerseys. He's one of those iconic Boston guys. So I think what happens is when that guy leaves, there's a certain segment of people who go, man, I really got to get one of those right away. And then I think I saw one. There was one for sale, like in the group pretty much right after the trade, for big money. I mean, he's a big money jersey. So that's kind of the exception, not the rule. I mean, I think if you think on that same team, you look at a guy like Trent Frederick, who I've got a jersey hanging behind me, St. Louis kid. Yep. Great player up there, good player up there. What happens to his value in Boston stuff? Well, it goes down, right? And anybody who says it doesn't is, in my opinion, wrong. There's going to be a certain segment of him as a tough guy, grinder kind of player who's always going to hold value. But, it comes back to that old rule of like, not here, you're forgotten a little bit, right? And that does happen. I actually just had this. I was actually at a sports card shop today. My buddy owns a place called Good Sports in Edwardsville, Illinois. Fantastic shop. And my friend Ben and I were talking about baseball. And we were talking about just different signings with different former Cardinals. And we were talking about the values of those things and how those have changed. Some of those guys are iconic players, but like people aren't chasing their signature as much. And the same thing happens with the jerseys. People aren't going to chase them as much if they're not on the team. So yeah, I think there's always an adjustment period to the values. And then like we've seen it in St. Louis where a guy leaves. David Backes is a great example of it. David Backes for a while was like always one of the top end jerseys that went in an auction or that was available for sale. He was gone. He went to Boston, kind of lost favor here a little bit because he stuck around the NHL a little bit, was on other teams. Wasn't a lot of movement on his stuff. And it seemed like the value went down. Well, then he retires. People realize that he's a pretty top tier guy, former captain. So now a Backus jersey holds a pretty good regard here, right? Petro was kind of the same way when he left. So I think that it just depends on the tier of the player on how well the jersey value holds up.
For sure. Well, and it's funny, one of the ones to follow, because we've seen him bounce around for a few teams, and wherever he landed, he seemed to gain a following pretty quick, is Jake Wallman.
Yeah.
I actually sold it today. I got to ship it tomorrow. I had a person looking for any Wallman stuff. I happen to have a helmet. He's a San Jose fan, but lives in Florida, and wanted to pick up whatever he could. Wallman in Detroit was fairly popular. He was okay popular here, but I mean,
he was young.
Yes. And it's super popular in San Jose, as we've seen in talking to Paul and others. Yeah. But it's weird. But like, you think of people like Joe Thornton. I don't care what team he's been on. That's a player that
it's a Hall of Fame guy.
Always going to stay no matter the
Jerome McGinley. You talk about those Hall of Fame guys. Jaromir Jagr for some short stints. If you're a Jagr collector, trying to find some of those short stint jerseys are tough. I mean, I'm a Ryan O'Reilly collector, right? Trying to find Toronto jerseys was a challenge, right? When you talk about values, I mean, the blue stuff on him was crazy when he was here, especially after he got to see after he won the Cup. I mean, there was just a wild market for his stuff, and it's cool. It's something I'm aware of. I'm aware of it whenever I go to make another purchase secondarily. Unfortunately, if you paid auction prices for a Ryan O'Reilly jersey and paid $4 or $5 grand, I'm going to sit here and tell you I'm sorry. I'm probably the guy that buys most of them, and I'm not paying that for one unless it's something absolutely insane that I don't have.
And how often that I've had discussions with people on asking about pricing or looking at jerseys, and it's the middle to the low tier guys, and for whatever reason in St. Louis or other cities had a big following, but now nobody cares because they're either out of the NHL or they moved on to another team, and they drop down, and it's like that jersey's not going to sell at
Kyle Brodziak. I mean, I can give you some Blues names from different periods, where they were, absolutely hotter than a firecracker guys. There's another guy from that same era, Arizona guy. Anyways, whenever those third, fourth line auctions were going off and those guys were here and were, really kind of tearing up those lines, they were high dollar. I mean, hard to get rid of now.
Right. Even the year, the post Cup year jerseys of those stayed high because the fans were excited into it. But the farther you get away from those big things, and if the players have left, like you said, other than the top tier guys, you're going to really bottom that out. I mean, it's crazy how many of the third or fourth liners of Blues I've seen over the last few years that you can buy for $250 now because people forgot about it.
Yeah, it was a guy who everybody kind of loved, right?
Yep.
Came here, was only here for a short time, didn't stay really that long enough to get a big following here. Everywhere he's been popular. He was popular when he was here. Unfortunately, didn't stay that long. So, you can look at the Sabokas and the, Yaskins and, the Lateras and those guys that have come through St. Louis.
And every team has that. And
for sure. Yeah.
I mean, those are nice because if you as a person like that particular player, you might be able to really get them cheap now. If you're okay.
Scotty Upshaw is the guy I was trying to think about earlier.
Yeah.
The girls all loved him. He was a good looking dude, third, fourth line grinder. So the guys dug the way he played, at the time, that was a pretty hot jersey. I don't know if you could really capitalize on that anymore,
Well, crap! Thanks for telling me. I have two of them. I really appreciate.
If you want one, I got nothing to go you a third. No problem. But no, he's one of those guys that falls on that list. But that's the fun of our hobby and the challenge of our hobby is and your collecting habits change sometimes. I know for a long time I was wanted to get everybody that kind of came through here that I liked. And then I've definitely adjusted the way I collect in the sense that I try to focus on guys that are kind of my guys, right? Rather than getting one of everybody I like, I try to go, okay, this guy's here. It's a guy I really like. He's a blue. I'm going to really try to focus on getting sets on guys more than I am of saying I want to get one of every guy. So I don't collect the third or fourth liners the same way I did, unless it's a guy I'm really locked in on.
Yeah, and if they're up and coming, you might pick them up earlier in the hopes that they continue that.
That they stay here. Like Jake Wallman would have been a guy that was the kind of guy that you probably would have when he was here, and you're going, oh man, this guy's a great scorer. He's exciting. He's electric out there. And you would have thought, hey, if he's going to be here for 5 or 6 years, you'd want to grab a few of them. And then suddenly he's gone, and now he's bounced a couple times.
Right.
Great kid. I hope he finds a home in Edmonton. I think that's a great place for him. So I'm hoping he finds somewhere to stick.
Yeah. And it's just, like I say, if we said, okay, list 5 guys from whatever team you follow that 2 years ago or 3 years ago, their jerseys were a high value, and now you can pick them up for $200 or $300. I know we get a huge list from everybody, but the nature of it is because you have guys move around and different things. And when even if they retire, unless they have some big tie to your team or whatever, they get forgotten about. And it's funny. I'll see some different jerseys pop up on eBay or in the groups. It's like, wow, I actually forgot that he was here. Or I go look to see how long they were here. And sometimes very surprised.
That's one of my favorite things is those like 90s, like especially the late 90s, like the Keenan years. And then a little after, it seemed like St. Louis got a lot of guys that made stops here that were like big somewhere else, right? Like Bill Guerin, like you could kind of look at that list of guys, Craig McTavish, like there's a whole window of guys there, that, and I love, I admittedly love those Blues jerseys, like the Tom Barrasso, stop St. Louis. Like to me, like, those, like, I love those, here, we're living in one right now. You can look at our back, pairings and pull out a couple of those guys that are pretty iconic names at other places that, the Suter jersey is going to be, he's a guy who's borderline Hall of Fame, maybe.
Yeah, and he may or may not be here if the Blues sign him after the season's over. Things like that.
Big time player in a couple other cities. 1,000 game guy. We've got a couple of those. You got Fowler, same thing. Those are guys that are like kind of big 1,000. Anytime you play 1,000 games, you're a pretty big time player, in my opinion. Because that's a longevity thing. That's pardon my French. That's fucking tough. Like,
you know what? And that's a question for the Ducks fans out there too, is Cam Fowler started his career there and spent 13 seasons with him now being in St. Louis. Has his popularity dropped off in Anaheim, or is he still yielding a lot of good results just because he was there so long?
Yeah.
I'd kind of be curious of that.
Anaheim's always been a jersey that I've always found to be interesting because, like, I'm yet to really see any. Here, if you're watching the show and you're a big Anaheim collector, call me an asshole. But I'm yet to really see anybody who's like a big Anaheim collector, right? Like, I don't know those guys. If they're out there, like, they're sure not in the groups like advertising it. So it's like one of those, you think about certain teams, you can instantly think of somebody who's like their collector. I think about the Kings. I think about their guys. I think about San Jose. There's certain cities that like you instantly like think of the team, and you can think of 5 guys who are probably big collectors of them. Like, close your eyes and tell me 3 big Anaheim collectors.
Yeah, and what's funny though with it is I like the look of the Duck jerseys though. I don't need one. Is the thing.
They've had some fantastic stuff roll through there. I mean, like, that orange thing they're wearing this year is awesome. The flying D ones, I never really like. That was like that era, and that's I think they're still in that or coming out of that. Like, those are pretty terrible. Some of the colorways on those are pretty bad, but over the years, they're pretty incredible jerseys. Right,
like you mentioned names that you may be surprised that were on, in our case, the Blues roster. Mike Keane.
Yeah.
Played with us with I think it was just 01 or 0102. He may have been the year before or year after.
Jamie Keane.
he was one of the big guys at the time who won the cup with the Avalanche.
Yeah,
A year or two before that.
Yeah. Corey Stillman. I mean, there was a whole run there, like when we were really shitty, of like a lot of guys like getting last cups of coffees in St. Louis. It's pretty, Ray Ferraro. I mean, there's some guys that ran through here for parts of seasons.
The old chicken parm.
Yeah,
Jay McKee when he was here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole run of them. So, and I think every team has a couple of those guys. Like you can, I mean, like here, like, Shaddy, like Kevin Shattenkirk was a guy that I really loved. I love following him. And like, who didn't he play for at the end, right? Like, like
you mentioned the Ducks. He was there.
Yeah, he was the Ducks. I mean, you got Boston. He was a long time in New York. I mean, like, the Caps. I mean, that guy, like, literally, he flopped a little bit around, and but he was a fun guy that people followed. So, like, I'm sure if you're a Kevin Shattenkirk fan, trying to come up with every jersey from every team is probably a challenge.
Right, and it's definitely, if you're listening to this, definitely comment or send one of us a message.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of give us your thoughts. Is does it truly change the value, or is it? And it may be part of, okay, those names are all out there, trade deadline, post-trade deadline, so people are thinking about them more. But call it by next season. Do you see a drop off? Kind of when is?
Yeah, there's a tier. There's a tier there, and I think there's a timing thing. I think there's a ebb and flow to it.
For sure.
So it's fun. I mean, again, I think it's fun to collect some of those guys, just because it's interesting to see an iconic player in a different jersey.
Right, and it's funny. I mean, sometimes you get nostalgic and you find the Reebok edges and things like that. It's like, ooh, I wouldn't mind picking that up at the right price. And it could be one of those players that was just okay on your team, but you like that style, or you have a memory of, oh yeah, I remember watching him do whatever it is. And
Scott Young in St. Louis,
yes.
was Scott Mellenby. I mean, like, God, I could sit here and do that whole era of guys.
Right.
Like, we could do an entire show on me just throwing out names of guys that I liked from other places that ended up in St. Louis. Dirty Laundry, episode 84. Wade just talks about guys he liked that came through here.
We'll have a chart put up and we'll cover it all. But it is. I mean, it happens everywhere. It's not just St. Louis. We're just using them as the example because we know them so well.
Yeah, for sure.
It's one of those things of, you may spark a memory. Oh, I like that guy, so now I'm going to pick up that jersey. But in a lot of cases, once they're gone, you forget they were even here, unless there was something that tied you to them.
How long is their tenure in a city? I mean, like here, a guy who, like, an iconic jersey in St. Louis, from St. Louis, Patty Maroon. I mean, people, like, I think people would, hit their mother in the face to get a Pat Maroon game worn Blues jersey at this point. I know
they might even try to do that for a Hawks jersey, which
that's what I'm getting. And so, like, here, that's a guy that left, and the value is probably every bit is still there or higher. So, I mean, it can go either way. It just depends on the connection to the player. It depends on what they did for the team and how you connect to that player.
No, and he, again, some of it's just attitude. As you go around different teams, is every city likes that player. Yeah. Let's say we had him. Now I'm blanking out of his name. He was put on waivers at the trade deadline. Was one of our fighters for a while, and I'm completely blanking out.
Oh, Ryan Reeves.
Yes. Every city he's gone to, his jerseys have been stupid expensive. Yeah, and it's because he's just a beloved guy wherever he goes. Yeah.
He's an end of the era guy too. Like, he's going to be the end of the real tough guy kind of thing. He's one of the last guys. But here, that is a guy who, when he first left St. Louis, he had been here for a long time. There was a lot of his shirts around. When he first left, you could grab a Ryan Reeves for pretty cheap. And then what happened is he continued his career. He did good everywhere else he's been since. So now there's that nostalgia. So what happened in his case with a lot of the teams is guys are like, hey, I collect fighters. There's a lot of Blues jerseys. I can get them pretty reasonable. Well, then the prices kind of went up, right? Mm-hmm. And he continued to have a good career other places. He's continued to be a showman in the league. And so he's going to hold his value. Yeah, here, but like Pat Maroon before he got to St. Louis and before the Cup run, I mean, you could give away a Pat Maroon jersey, a Pat Maroon Ducks jersey. I remember those being $400, $500, $600.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden he comes here, he wins a cup, he leaves here, wins a couple more cups, kind of becomes one of those, fan favorite, long time sticking around, fun guy in a lot, fun guy in an interview, fun guy on the ice. I mean, now his stuff is crazy expensive. Any team, those $500 Ducks jerseys are probably $1,000 or better now.
Yeah, and going back to Ryan Reeves really quick, I just did a quick Google search of game worn for his, and two of them came up. One's a Vegas jersey and one is a Rangers jersey. The Vegas is listed on eBay for $4,000 and the Rangers is listed on Fanatics site for $2,500.
Yeah, that's I mean, Fanatics is absolutely.
Well, they sell. I mean, that seems a little high, but not out of the range of possibilities, because the other ones, the Vegas ones that were out there, sold for good money when the teams had them put up.
There's always that, I've been having that conversation with a few people, and it keeps popping up around the hobby. Is like, it's a topic that we all need to talk about at some point. It's pretty controversial. It's like, we always talk about not price shaming, but Jesus, there's some people that need to have their prices shamed. Well,
and my thing is this, and I've had people reach out to me. What do you think? I'm like, anybody can ask whatever they want, but some of that stuff, just understand, is gonna sit.
No, for sure, and that's the thing. I mean, like at the end of the day, the value on these things. And I've had this conversation. Somebody, like I can think it's a crazy price and it could sell, right? It's all about what it's worth to somebody. But there are some prices out there where it's like, you're just like, what are you doing? Like, is it? I had a conversation with somebody recently, and my comment was simply, if you're pricing them to have a museum, then you're going to have a museum. If you're pricing them to sell, it's a different price, right? So it becomes, what are you trying to do? Because a lot of times people say, oh, I want to sell stuff, but they put it out for like prices that they're not going to sell anything. And then there's other times that you have to say, like, hey, I'm trying to move this stuff. I understand I maybe am going to take a hit, or I'm going to put it out at a cheap price because I actually want to sell stuff, right? There's a fine line between, like I said, dude, you can turn it, if you want to price stuff for museum prices, you can definitely frame that stuff and put it in your house because it's not going anywhere.
You're absolutely right. And it's, we talk about do your homework when you're looking to buy a jersey. Do your homework when you're looking to sell one too, because and again, auctions aren't always the best example to use. And again, check your dates, because you may research, oh, I know this sold 5 or 6 years ago at auction and it sold for $1,200. Now I think it's worth $5,000. Well, there's other ways to go look. I mean, you can use Facebook as a kind of as a judge, because in the search feature, you should be able to find if there's closed ones there. You can use eBay to a point, but use the closed or sold auction. Don't go the ones that are listed. Like if you find another game jersey that's the same player but maybe a different year, if it's marked at $3,000 on eBay, okay, that's what they're asking. But go look at the sold side, then you can kind of see. Going back to what I do with the Blues auctions.
Yeah.
I track every one of them. What my primary purpose for doing that is so when I go to bid on stuff, I kind of have an idea of what the range of that jersey is probably going to sell for.
I ask you, I mean, I'm probably annoying as I'll get up to you, but I ask you all the time.
Every time.
No, I mean, I ask you all the time, like, hey, can I send me the thing? Or, hey, what was this? Because I can't remember what every single thing sells for.
No, and you're not the only one, and I am absolutely happy to do that.
What you do
because I have it at my fingertips all the time.
Sure. And I'm too late to look back.
I want everything to be fair.
No, for sure. And I do too. And that's why, like you said, I mean, I have so many people, and we all do. I think when you get to a certain place in the hobby, I think you have people that look to you for guidance on pricing and this and that, and I'm really like I'm not. It's always an honor that people want your opinion, right? That's something that I think if you're a hobbyist and you work hard to be good at something or enjoy a hobby, you want to become knowledgeable at it. And if you don't, then like, what are you doing?
Right. And
but
I don't know everything about all the different
No,
years of jerseys.
but
I
here's
know.
the thing. But we have a collection of people who do,
Right.
right?
And
For the most part, and that's what you have to use.
exactly. And if there's a question that comes up, if I have that style of jersey in my collection, I will gladly go grab it and said, I'm looking at mine and here's what I see.
Absolutely.
Here's the kind of things to look for. If I don't, then I know I can send them to you or to somebody else that may have the more specific knowledge on those things.
And then I'll usually say,
hobbyists across the different teams do the same thing.
Then I usually say, where is this for sale? Or how did they get to you before May? Like, what's going on? How did I miss?
I am never going to call myself an expert because I don't feel I ever will be.
So
I know what I know in the era I've been collecting.
For sure.
I don't consider myself an expert. I have a good knowledge in that area, but there's definite things that I could have missed or I have not seen. So no, I'm not an expert in that. I will give you my opinion on the stuff that I have or the stuff that I've seen. And then they may also say, hey, also check with Wade or check with Paul if it's San Jose or whatever. Check with whoever you're looking at because they may have or know or said, oh yeah, this one year they did this thing that I forgot about or you forgot about, whatever it is.
Yeah, you got to do your homework. I mean, the one thing, obviously with my background in the hobby, the one thing that I learned a long time ago, if you're going to throw around that expert word or that, whatever feeling about yourself is two things. One, humble your ass. Be humble because you know what? Nobody knows everything and you gotta be humble enough to know that you're gonna make mistakes. And the other thing is, and I say this with every bit of honesty, and I've said it about autographs when I have done that, I'd say with jerseys is you are only as good as the last time you messed up. Never forget that. You're gonna mess up. And the people that are really successful at authentication and at being experts or being knowledgeable are the ones who are humble enough to say, I messed up or I'm wrong, because you're going to be wrong. And there's nothing that's going to ruin that opinion of you and make you look more foolish than not being humble enough to say I messed up. And there's too many of those guys in the hobby. And that's my tip of the day. Be humble, be consistent, but also know that you're not going to be perfect.
Absolutely right. And my thing is, and I've told several people this as different things have come up. It's like I will never risk my reputation
on a guest
or for any of that. Is my reputation will hopefully last long past any jersey I've owned, even if I was to sell every jersey, but still being a hobby.
Yeah.
I want my reputation is what matters at the end of the day.
You can't guess and you can't go on your history. You have to go on your knowledge. And that's another thing I think sometimes people make a mistake of is, man, you can't know every style, every team, everything, especially with this stuff because there's just too damn much of it. And there's not really a database on it,
And I appreciate guys and all of a sudden I'm a blank on his name, the Chicago collector, who's got his website where he documents every Hawks jersey and shows the tagging and all of those things.
Yeah.
And I apologize because
you got guys like Casey out there.
Yeah.
You got guys that are in their lane knowing what they know. Jerseys are different than autographs in the fact that autographs is something you can build an exemplar file on. And you really could do it for jerseys, but there's just so many different variations and nobody's ever done it. I've been part of autograph authentication databases and exemplar files that have 1 million plus images in them. And, the thing is there ain't nobody in this hobby who's got a Rolodex like that in jerseys.
Right.
And nobody's tried to do it and nobody's successfully done it. And the only way you can really say everything is by having something like that. It can't all be up here.
Right.
You can't do that. Just it's not.
And I apologize. It's Sean Sullivan. I
Sean,
just pull his name out
I
of
was
my head
going to say
there
it,
for a
but
minute.
you were like, I wanted to let you get it out.
Yeah, but I finally looked it up. But But no, it's guys like that. It's guys across the hobby that are taking time to photograph and load up and put those details online, because we've talked so many times that people are probably sick of it, is the number of databases that have been created out there.
Yeah.
The Red Wings, the
There's
all
so
the
many-
other ones that are out there that no longer exist, and now the numbers are worthless. Even the more recent ones with Fanatics buying out
Well,
yeah.
Soccer's never worked any damn way. That
Oh,
was
right.
those, But again, you're right. I mean, the worst part about those coding systems is they're not forever. And that's the biggest problem with those is, and that's where you can use them as a reference, but you have to know what the reference is to use it. Because if the number isn't going to work, you need to know other parts of it. So
Right. And true, even again, going back to the Blues example, because I know what the best is, the Blues, you can enter the barcode
yeah,
on their site and it will give you details.
Yeah.
If you're worried or something, print that out.
Yeah, no
Or
shit.
screenshot it and save it in a file on your computer, put it in Google Drive, wherever, so it at least exists in another spot. So if Rinkside either goes away or changes
Crashes.
and they decide not to keep up with that, then there's at least your jersey still has that along with the other documentation.
Absolutely.
Same way with Fanatic stuff is with them using the little hologram.
Yeah.
And I think all digital LOAs now is print that out or digitize it so you at least have your own copy.
I agree with that.
Trust them to continue to maintain it. As somebody that has been in IT for pushing 29 years now, data gets lost either on purpose or accidental, and a lot of times, oh yeah, I've got this backed up, but then they go to use the backup and it's completely it's garbage and it can't be restored, and then you're SOL.
Interesting topic of conversation. I'd love to get
coming into the show, we're mostly going to talk on the trade values and stuff, but we've expanded out, and that's how a lot of the shows go.
We can talk forever.
Right.
Let's go back to the McDonald's.
Now I want some chicken nuggets, because my God, those are awesome.
Puppies already ate those here, so sorry.
Yeah. I kind of wish I was recording when Jasper walked away to do something, and Jasper was actually in the chair, first looked at the camera with the grin of, guess what I'm going to do, and then immediately went to the French fries and chicken nuggets that were sitting on the side table.
He's the real expert in this family.
Well, any final thoughts from you before we get out of here?
Nothing crazy. I think this was a fun one. I always like when we get our full panel, but this was cool. I'm excited that we're gonna have some people come on after the Nova.
Yes.
I think I've been talking to Dan and Matt about coming in and doing their take on that, and both of those guys are very good about their wording, and they're going to be very particular and go over not just the show but the whole weekend. So that's cool. I am working. I'm planning on going to the Migrate show in July. That's actually on my radar, so I'm really excited about that because I've never been to the warehouse there. So that's something I'm excited about doing and reporting back on, although it's a ways away. Just when you ask my final thoughts, that's my final thought. I'm really excited about that, and just enjoying the hobby.
Yeah, and it's been fun. I've been able to pick up a few other pieces. If this sounds a little bit better, or may not sound worse, who knows? I was able to pick up a new Roadcaster Pro 2 over the weekend. Made a trip down to St. Louis to pick that up, and then of course dropped a jersey off for Wade on the way home.
The
technology is back. My other Roadcaster is off at the shop, hopefully getting fixed. I should hear from that next week. But now I'll have two: one to be able to travel with, and one to keep here at the home studio.
Yeah,
But it's funny, you don't realize how much you rely on this stuff until it quits working. And while the show was fine last week, but just me talking through the mic on the computer, it drove me nuts, because I'm used to having that, be able to adjust things, just being the tech guy and the sound guy that I am. I wanted that, and it was really throwing me off. So glad to at least have that back. And
the hobby's lucky to have you and your mixing boards.
Hey, we appreciate it. And again, Migray has put out some great podcasts recently as well. I know Jason, the Devil's Collector, was just on there. They did a big roundtable Migray did with a bunch of their people talking about the Migray Expo and just some funny stories. So if you're not listening to them as well, please go do that. Both of these podcasts are great for the hobby. And again, if you want to come on, if you have topic suggestions, please reach out. We'd love to have you on and cover things, even if you don't want to actually come on the show. I've been checking in with Rory down in New Zealand. He's working on some things. So I appreciate that. He's always fun to talk to. But if you're a listener anywhere in the world, we appreciate you. Please tell your friends about us, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Keep helping us out. Until next week, enjoy the show. Enjoy the close. We're getting close to the end of the season, seeing who's going to make the playoffs and who doesn't. We'll talk about some of that as we do these shows. But as always, again, thank you for all the support. It does mean a lot. We'll see you back next time.